Dawn's dad is marrying Carol the same weekend Mrs. Barrett marries Mr. DeWitt. It's the weekend before Christmas, and what? There are two December weddings? I'm sorry, the premise of this book is more unrealistic than the super special where they won the lottery.
Argo Funk Book Review, Argo Funk Book Review.
This book was written by Peter Larangis. Dawn is upset about the double wedding because it means some of her friends won't come to California to see her be a bridesmaid. Yeah, I'm pretty sure most of them weren't going to come anyway. 8 round-trip flights across the country is expensive. Dawn and her friends go shopping for a bridesmaid's dress, which is a dumb idea. You shouldn't buy a dress without the bride, otherwise the two of you are probably going to end up getting 2 dresses that clash horribly, especially since Carol is wearing a floral print for the wedding. Dawn gets a dress without shoulders, which is too scandalous for the cover artist to draw. Dawn wonders if she should get a second dress for Marianne so they can be matching bridesmaids. Don't bridesmaids normally wear matching dresses? Mrs. Barrett's sister can't make it for the wedding, so she asks Stacey to be a replacement bridesmaid. Why Stacey? I had no idea Mrs. Barrett particularly liked Stacey. I thought Dawn and Marianne were her favorites. It's almost like Mrs. Barrett picked a BSC member at random. Plus, this appears to be a no-kids wedding, so it's strange to have a 13-year-old bridesmaid. It would have made way more sense if she asked one of her mom friends, like Mrs. Pike or Stacey's mom. A store at the mall needs a last-minute replacement for their Santa Claus. Jessi is the only one who's free that weekend, so she gets the job. She worries she can't do it because she's black and female and 11. That's pretty different from Santa, but the person at the store is nice and thinks Jessi will do a great job. Mallory hangs out with her kind of boyfriend Ben, and by the way, there's no Santa Claus. No Santa Claus, he's fake, totally made up. Wow, I thought this was supposed to be a children's book. How many children cried because of Mallory here? Not counting the readers who normally cry whenever Mallory narrates. A huge group of kids show up, and Ben starts singing. They decide to go caroling as a group next week, but then Mrs. Barrett hires Mallory and Shannon to watch the kids at the wedding. Oh no, that's the same time as caroling! Mallory tells Ben they have to cancel caroling, and he is furious. Suzi Barrett doesn't want to move, and she gets upset that the new house doesn't have a chimney. How will Santa come? Suzy writes a letter to Santa telling him about her address change, but then she gets worried he won't have enough time to read the letter, so Suzy whines and screams more than normal. Isn't she precious? Jeff narrates. He thinks writing in Dawn's wedding journal is a waste of time, and he's annoyed because the girls never stop talking. Jeff is easily the best narrator of the series. He complains about doing chores and worries that the housekeeper will be fired after Carol moves in. I haven't mentioned this before, but I am 90% certain that the housekeeper, Mrs. Bruin, was named after the housekeeper, Mrs. Gruen, from the Nancy Drew series. I'm kind of surprised Claudia never mentions it. All of Carol's things are being moved to the house on the day of the wedding. That is terrible timing, truly. There's not enough room in the house for 2 sets of furniture, so they'll have to sell some things. Dad and Carol get into a big fight over who has to sell what, and this marriage is already off to a bad start. There's a We Love Kids Club meeting. As usual, Kristy hates the club because they're idiots who don't know how to run a business. I agree with Kristy. It's hard to get customers if you're only open whenever you feel like it. Sunny wants to have a surprise party for Dawn, but she hasn't put any thought into it. Kristy takes charge and saves the party from being a disaster. Claudia's parents didn't want to spend the money to send her to California, so Dawn's dad made up a fake job for her. Claudia is now being paid to come as a wedding consultant. Claudia buys flowers and completely redoes the catering menu. Did I mention the wedding is tomorrow? Because the wedding is tomorrow! You do not decide the menu and flowers the night before the wedding! Marianne is a little skeptical about a beach wedding because she'll probably get a sunburn and the wind will mess up her hair. So she's already not feeling too good when Dawn tells her she's a bridesmaid. You really should have told Marianne about that sooner, Dawn. Marianne is shocked and nervous about being in front of a large group of strangers. At dinner, Dad and Carol go over the wedding plans. Wait, there's no rehearsal? Normally weddings have rehearsals. It turns out that the title of the book is a lie. There are no bridesmaids in the wedding. Dawn is the maid of honor, and that's it. Dawn is just a jerk who assumed her dad would want his ex-wife's new kid to be his bridesmaid. Not the case. Marianne is upset she's not going to be in the wedding. Dawn points out that's the complete opposite of what she felt 5 pages ago, and Marianne cries. Jessi is super nervous until she starts her Santa job. It turns out she's great with kids. She loves it and doesn't want to leave. Marianne, wow, back to her so soon? Marianne insults Dawn.
Dawn can be very creative when she's not being forgetful and inconsiderate.
Dawn apologizes for being a wicked stepsister, and they become best friends again. Claudia styles everyone's hair, Dad drives like a maniac, and Dawn cries during the entire wedding. At the DeWitt wedding, the children misbehave so badly, I have a hard time believing any of them have been inside a church before. That might explain why the word altar is misspelled in this chapter. Shannon must never go to church either, because she's confused by the aisles and goes down the wrong one accidentally. How many aisles does this church have? Anyway, the toddler misbehaves. Shannon takes him to the basement nursery so he can nap. That means Mallory is stuck with 6 kids for the entire wedding. Shannon is a jerk. Also, there's a basement nursery? If the kids are such monsters, why don't they keep the kids there? And why aren't there any relatives who can watch the kids? That's what happened at my wedding. Stacey has fun with the bridesmaids, and she likes walking down the aisle. The wedding is interrupted when Marnie walks up to her mom, but everyone ends up being okay with it. At the wedding reception, Claudia takes pictures and decorates a Christmas tree. I know she's working with Kristy, but the picture makes it look like she's decorating the tree with herself. Speaking of Kristy pictures, that cover, oh my gosh, Kristy. Mallory feels bad for fighting with Ben. She apologizes, and they decide to go caroling tomorrow. In retrospect, changing the caroling date was an obvious solution they should have thought of immediately. They have lots of fun singing with all the kids, and as a Christmas present, Ben gives Mallory a tape on how to improve her singing. Ben is not winning any boyfriend awards in this book. Jeff is bored by the lack of kids at the wedding reception. I'm not sure why he didn't get to invite his friends, when Dawn got to invite tons of people. Jeff is happy to learn Mrs. Bruin won't be fired, and they open wedding presents. Carol's moving van is robbed. All of her furniture is stolen. Carol confesses she hated the furniture. She only started a fight over the furniture because she didn't want her husband to make any decisions. Again, this marriage is already off to a bad start. The DeWitts hire Logan to move all their furniture for some reason. He's in middle school! Why are you asking him to move pianos? Logan and Susie make a plan so Santa can locate her house. She's going to leave a trail of crumbs, just like Hansel and Gretel. Susie thinks Hansel and Gretel were dumb for using breadcrumbs because birds eat them, so she uses cookie crumbs instead. Birds eat cookie crumbs too, Susie. The party for Dawn is a success, and the children are incredibly cute. Carol helps Dawn pass her final exam, and on Christmas Day, Dawn flies back to Connecticut. Everyone is glad that Dawn is back for good. There were 25 books in between this one and the start of her 6-month vacation. That is a super long 6 months. In the epilogue, they realize Stacey's mom is still single, so we can have a 5th wedding in this series if we want. We don't! We don't! The end. Post-book follow-up. After the end, there's a contest to name the new babysitter and her twin sister. The new babysitter? But I thought Dawn was back for good! You can't bring her back just to get rid of her again! That's not fair! Dawn gets 4 chapters to herself. Marianne is the only person with 3 chapters. Everyone else gets 2, except Shannon and Logan. I didn't like the 2-chapter setup. We got way less plot than normal, and it doesn't help that there's a 100-page gap in between the different installments of a story. To be specific, the 2-chapter setup ruined Kristy, Claudia, and Stacey's stories for me. Nothing happens with them! You could have cut them out entirely without affecting the book much. Stacey babysits one chapter, and with no transition whatsoever, she's suddenly the bridesmaid in the wedding. It would have worked much better if there was an in-between chapter where she met the other bridesmaids, or interacted with the bride. The brides are mostly absent for this book, I noticed. We're told Mrs. Barrett is a bridezilla who freaks out over small problems. That's something interesting we should have seen, right? That would be a cool storyline, much better than babysitting. Oh, I'm so cute walking down the aisle. Claudia's wedding planning was hilarious, but pointless. She doesn't really plan anything. All she does is pick flowers. To make things worse, her second chapter is after the wedding. How is Claudia supposed to plan the wedding after the wedding? Terrible timing there. Move her second chapter up a bit and give her some real wedding planning to do. Kristy's chapters were equally pointless. I liked seeing her take charge of the We Love Kids Club. Yeah, that was great. But it was only 2 pages. She has almost nothing to do with the actual party, and the party was overshadowed by the kids anyway. I would keep the party because that was a surprisingly emotional scene, but there's absolutely no reason to tie it to Kristy. Jessi and Mallory's stories work just fine with the 2-chapter setup. I give those stories a thumbs up. Jessi's the only one with a story that has nothing to do with the weddings. The scenes with her family were nice, and it was mildly interesting to see the great performer get stage fright. I liked seeing Mallory's relationship with Ben because we don't see much of him, and their fight felt more realistic than the Dawn-Marianne fight. That fight felt contrived, mainly because Marianne completely flips positions halfway through her first chapter. It would have worked better if that was pushed out into her second chapter. Or if we got to hear Dawn's take on the "you're a bridesmaid, oops, you're not a bridesmaid" drama. As it is now, it's sort of a fake fight that's soon forgotten. Jeff's chapters were the best. He has 2 stories, the one about Mrs. Bruin and the one about Carol's furniture. That's great. It felt like we got more of Jeff than we actually did. Jeff rules. As for Suzy, I don't know who thought it would be a good idea to spend 3 chapters on a 5-year-old Santa drama, but it was actually a terrible idea. Logan's chapter was a Suzy chapter in disguise, and Shannon's was okay, I guess. Any other babysitter could have narrated that chapter, and I wouldn't have been able to tell the difference. Finally, Dawn. She's super excited for the wedding, and that's basically it. She has no major distinct storyline of her own. I wish the book had given her a storyline with Carol. She's hated Carol for the past 50 books or so. I think that should have been more directly addressed. There's a brief scene where Dawn has conflicted feelings about the wedding. That was surprisingly emotional. I feel like Dawn's emotions, her feelings about her dad and Carol, could have been a storyline on its own, just like when Kristy's mom was married. Overall, the book is funny. I guess the wedding theme appeals to young female readers, although we've already had 2 weddings in this series. I liked half of the storylines and the general idea of the book. I just wish there was more meat to the book instead of fluffy wedding stuff that doesn't go into much detail. I give Babysitters Club Super Special number 12. Here come the bridesmaids, a 5 out of 10. It's appropriate for me to sing the score because there is a lot of singing in this book. Just a ton of singing, at least 6 different songs. Yeah, I know there's a caroling storyline, but still, it was an overload of singing. I don't know why.